The Archdiocese of Chicago is a vibrant and diverse faith community. We celebrate our faith through worship, evangelization, and reaching out to the needy. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Seated to my left, dear friend, Mark Teresi, who's involved with the 175th anniversary, the 150th anniversary coming up, does special projects, a lot. Good morning, Mark. How are you?
Very good. And we have had all those graduations at Holy Name, St. Pat's, Mount Carmel, Resurrection, FXW.
It's just
what
a
wonderful month.
Wonderful time of year, and how quickly we have moved May, moving into June.
Right.
The time is just flying by. We have a tremendous show lined up again this morning. Backed by popular demand, Dr. Edward Gordon, historian, researcher, writer, dear friend, wife Elaine, and Edward very involved at Holy Name Cathedral. Edward, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, I know we could probably talk 3 hours on 3 different topics, and we're going to try to cut it down to a 30-minute program.
Well, we don't want
roughly.
to put people to sleep.
I don't want people to sleep, but again, we're going to talk first part on, the whole program is going to be on the economy. Part 1, tariffs. Edward, take over.
All right. Well, if we could see slide 1, it'll give you an idea of what we're going to talk about. There we go. Now you have on this a nice map, sort of the size of our imports, the size of our exports, and the growth of the economy. The one thing that you should note on this is that imports are at a very record high, but you also notice how our exports also are very high right now. And the reason for this is that we export a lot of high tech around the world, as well as agricultural products. Now, lately, we've seen an effort to put tariffs on our imports to discourage people from buying foreign goods. And also the idea is that more of the jobs will come back to the United States. Well, you'll notice, though, what's happened to the growth rate in the GDP. Since that started, we've seen a decline in the economy, of the growth of the economy. Now let's talk a little bit about tariffs, though. What does a tariff do? Well, tariffs really are designed to create, there's a balance between where the money is going. So if we import more goods and there is a deficit, that means the U.S., which is a huge consumer economy, is buying a lot of foreign goods from around the world. Now, other economies are not buying as much of our goods, but
Why?
Because they're too expensive for many of them, and also they want to protect their local industries, like China is doing this. However, what we need to know is there's a balance in these trade numbers. Other countries, like China, invest heavily in U.S. debt. So the money that they have derived from our buying their goods, and this is also true for countries in Europe, they have tremendous investment in our debt and in businesses in the United States. It's called foreign direct investment. And the U.S. has had huge investments by other countries. One of the reasons why is the stability of our government and the stability of our economy. And so foreigners have trusted us, and they invest because we have a huge domestic economy where people buy a lot of products. So when you look at these imports and exports, and you should also know tariffs, who pays for these tariffs? Well, partially they're paid by foreigners, but what's going to happen is a lot of these goods then the prices will go up because they will become scarce.
Now, driving in today on the radio, the big headline was Toyota has had a banner month last month.
Yes.
Why?
Well, because people are buying those cars before the prices go up. All right. Right now, there's a 10% tariff on all imports, and there are selectively higher tariffs. Now, the government is negotiating tariff and trade policies with all these countries.
Can I ask you a question? So, a novice listening to the news every night, all of a sudden, every night, the news is about tariffs. Where a year ago, you barely heard tariffs. Why is that?
Well, tariffs were something that were very popular 100 years ago. When the United States was had a big industrial economy. Now we are more of a service economy than we are an industrial. However, the industrial things that we export, like Boeing jets and other high-tech devices, they actually bring in a lot of revenue, as you see in this slide. All right. The idea, though, is that we are losing money because we have huge trade deficits. Well, it's much more complicated than that, because if people then are investing the money that they made back into the United States by buying our debt, treasuries, and also investing in U.S. businesses, the money, where's the money going? Well, it's coming right back into the United States.
Now, Edward, can the whole theory or thrust of tariffs backfire?
Yes.
How?
First of all, it discourages trade, because if we put high tariff walls on our goods, supposedly to bring back more manufacturing or other jobs in the U.S., and we'll talk about that later today, other countries will do the same thing. So after the Second World War, we negotiated a number of tariff agreements operating more of a free trade across the United States. Now, do some countries still have higher tariffs? Our tariffs have been about 3% on average. Now they're 10%. Do other countries try to protect their tariffs? So, such as in Europe, the Europeans protect their agriculture, because if they didn't, they'd lose all of their agriculture by importing all their food into Europe.
Now, can I ask you a question related to this? So, again, a novice, but I hear tariffs, I hear bring business back to the United States, then I hear corporations saying it's going to take 3 to 5 years to build plants to produce what we're not getting from the other countries.
That is correct.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, it takes time to switch. Now, remember, why many jobs left the United States originally is that companies thought they could get the goods produced in other countries more cheaply because the wages were lower. All right. Now, what has happened over all of these years is wages have risen in many of these countries. Transportation costs have gone up in many of these countries. And now people want more customization of many of these imported goods. So it would make more sense to produce them within the U.S. However, to do that, you have to have a properly educated workforce. And that's what we're going to talk about in the third segment.
Now what we're going to do is we're going to switch from tariffs, talk about debt.
Debt. Well, if we go to the second slide that you have, we'll put that one up right now, if you would.
Yeah.
Slide number 2. There. No, that's well. That's one.
That's one.
There
we
two.
go.
Okay.
Thank you, team.
Now, U.S. debt has gone up tremendously. During the Second World War, in order to finance World War II, we went into very heavy debt. And then you see what happened after the Second World War. It fell precipitously. Then it went up again during the Great Recession, as you remember that. That's in 2008, right? And the government poured money into the economy in order to prevent a recession. And then you also had COVID, and you remember what happened there. Everyone went home, and everything was shut down. So again,
It crushed the economy.
right. Now, since then, we've had continued increases in the federal debt. And now it is 123% of the gross domestic product. The overall,
Now explain that.
the gross domestic product of the United States right now is around a little over $30 trillion. I'm sorry, that's wrong. That's the debt level. The gross domestic product of the United States is, that's correct, a little over $30 trillion. Now, because of Social Security and Medicare and other increased costs in the military, etc., we now are, the proposed bill that was just passed by the House will add more debt to the overall debt of the United States.
Wow.
We will go from $35 trillion to $37 trillion.
What happened to all these cuts?
Well, the cuts really did not offset this debt.
Okay.
The idea was that they would find, they have laid off a lot of people in the bureaucracy, but it has not saved, maybe it saved $100 billion a year. There are several different estimates of what it has saved, but it has not saved trillions of dollars.
Okay.
All right. Now, the difficulty with debt is that this year, in the current budget, the biggest outlays are for Social Security and Medicare, the military, and the interest on our debt. All right? This year, the interest on our debt is larger, that payment, than what we spend on the military.
The interest on the debt alone?
On the debt, correct.
Wow.
Holy mackerel.
So now what that means is that we have to sell more treasuries to finance the debt. Now, if this continues, what is going to happen is there's a good chance of inflation, and also it squeezes out investment. So when you want to go, when businesses want to expand, they're going to have to pay more money in interest. And when you want to buy a house or a car, the interest rates will rise. Why? Because there's only so much money in the economy that can be lent, capital, all right? And the government is soaking up more and more of that.
So our son is 39.
Yes.
Speak to him about how this is going to impact his future.
Well, for it not to impact his future, the economy has to grow in real terms, not inflation. All right, the numbers have. I could go into inflation over a historic period.
That'd be another program.
Yeah, and it's what a dollar was in let's say 1975. It takes far more dollars today to $10 more. It's inflated.
Wow.
A salary of
50 years.
$15,000 in 1975 would be equivalent to $150,000
When I
now.
started at 7-Eleven working in 1969,
Right.
16 years old, Park Ridge, I was making $1.25 an hour.
Right.
And I was happy.
That was
Right.
100 years ago.
Well, not that long.
Well, but-
We're only 2 years younger than me.
What year was that now?
1969.
Right, and
Yeah.
and the price of gasoline was under 30 cents a gallon.
That is correct. I remember I went to the gas. My mother would say, "Greg, here's $1. Give me $1 worth at the pump." It was 29 cents a gallon, so I got almost
Half a tank
yeah,
almost.
for $1. Mark, take us to break.
We'll be back, Catholic Chicago, or with Dr. Ed Gordon, teacher, writer. Actually, this is fascinating to me because you're explaining this in a way I'm beginning to understand it. So thank you. We'll be back. We're going to continue to talk about debt, and then you're going to talk a little bit about jobs and the impact of the economy right now on jobs.
Right.
We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
I feel special. I feel great. I got good grades.
We've seen a huge surge in our kids now meeting or exceeding grade level. Come check us out. You may have never thought we were an option before.
Our school communities provide students with academic excellence and character education in a supportive and stable learning environment. Come see for yourself. Visit artchicago.org/findaschool.
People always say, how can you spend your day with 3-year-olds? Seeing the changes that they go through and just the journey and how they grow, this is a very rewarding job. Even though at the end of the day, we're not the highest paid people on earth. And when I have a parent contact me and say, my child loves school, that to me, I'm setting that foundation for their love of learning, because really you are changing lives, you are molding lives.
Shape the next generation of leaders. Teach. Apply today at artchicago.org/schooljobs.
I am a seminarian.
The church needs compassionate and well-trained priests to help guide each of us through life.
What inspires me, what draws me always to the priesthood is continue to see priests be a beacon of hope for other people.
You can play a part in the education of these young men as they prepare for a life of service to others.
I want to be that beacon of hope too, and it sets my heart on fire.
To support our seminarians, make your gift at artchicago.org/seminarian fund or call 312-534-7959.
We're back. Catholic Chicago. Father Greg Sakowicz, Mark Teresi here with Dr. Edward Gordon. We've talked about tariff, debt. What about jobs? What are we looking at in the future with tariffs being what they are, the debt being what it is?
Right. If we go to the third slide, I think it has an interesting graphic that we can. Now, this is news to most people. Factory jobs go unfilled. Right now, there are 500,000 factory jobs in the United States that are empty.
500,000?
500,000.
Wow.
Now, the reason for this is very simple. Our manufacturing establishment is now a high-tech manufacturing establishment. In 1970, that was not true, before PCs were introduced into factories and manufacturing. So when many of the jobs left the U.S. and went overseas, those jobs, many of them were low-skill jobs. Some were not. Some were high-skill jobs, and we simply didn't have the people to do the work. But a lot of the low-skill jobs left. Now they are being reshored. They're calling it's reshoring, all right? And the idea that currently many people think may happen is that higher tariffs will bring back these jobs into the United States, such as the chip bill that was passed by the past administration to build chip factories so we would have it. All right, well, what has happened? In the state of Ohio around Columbus, they are trying to build these factories. Well, they're behind. The reason they're behind is that they don't have enough plumbers, carpenters, electricians to build the buildings.
Wow.
We have a shortage of skilled trade labor, all right? That's one problem. Now, the other problem that they know they're going to have is that who's going to work in the chip factories? Well, they estimate they're going to have to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on training adults because there are not enough people who read at the 12th grade level of reading comprehension or above who can be trained to work in a chip factory.
Now, can you, so it's interesting, they have not been able to get these factories done. Projected 3 years out, the technology has changed generationally.
Well, right, but that just means you have to retrain. Now, some manufacturers train, like Boeing. They have huge training programs. Their problem, and they are way behind in building aircraft.
Oh, wow.
All right? Huge backlog. One of the problems they have is they can't find enough young people who read at the 12th grade level or above, who are trainable, who can go through their training program at a local technical college and then go on the assembly line and assemble these planes. Airbus in Europe has the same problem.
Right.
All right? Only 20% of our companies train workers because businesses want maximum profits now. And training is a cost, so we eliminate training.
So let me ask you this, Edward. Quote, a factory job today has a whole different terminology
Correct.
than 50 years ago.
So an example, in North Carolina, there was a sock factory. They had 4,000 people making socks. They moved that to China. They had 6,000 people, but they made 50 cents an hour. All right? Now, wages went up, transportation went up, and there's a lot of corruption, and you have to pay off a lot of officials. All right? And in the meantime, the sock industry has fragmented, and now they need shorter runs of customized socks for different parts of the country. Okay, so now they want to move it back. Well, guess what? There is a factory in North Carolina that instead of having 4,000 people, they now have 1,400. But all of those have advanced training, associate degrees, internships. They read above the 12th grade level, and they can now make those socks and customize it and be competitive, all right, because of the technologies that they have introduced.
Which was 4,000 employees is now 1,400.
Right.
Doing the same thing.
But the problem is, now you want to move more back. Well, the problem is we don't have the people to work doing that type of work. So when, say, the factory jobs go unfilled, what we're right now, the National Manufacturing Association says we have 500,000 empty. By 2030, we will have 1 million empty jobs because our educational systems are stuck in the 1970s where we had plenty of low-skilled jobs that paid a middle-class income, and those jobs are gone because of technology. So technology has gone this way in terms of its efficiency, and our educational system is still here, basically educating about a third of our young people, and this includes private as well as public education.
Wow.
So about a third graduate from high school, reading at the 12th grade level, and then they could do into manufacturing, they could go into healthcare, they could be.
So what happens to the other
2/3?
thirds?
The next third is below that. Maybe they're at 9th grade level. And the bottom third is way below. And the test data from the NAEP Assessment of Education Progress shows that only a small number of students are at above grade level. The number at grade level has frozen. The number at basic, which is 1 or 2 years below grade level, has declined, and they've moved into below basic, which is 3 or 4 years below grade level.
So,
And now the state of Illinois has announced they want to dumb down the achievement tests and lower the
Yes, I read that,
standards.
yeah.
And the Chicago Teachers Union says, well, they're against They are against standardized tests. Well, if only 13% of our high school graduates in Chicago public schools got a high enough score on the ACT to go into an apprenticeship, a one-year certificate, a two-year degree, only 13% of their graduates. And I have news for you. The kids coming out of private schools are not that much ahead. All right? Some are. I'm not saying all children aren't, but what I'm saying is we need more well-educated, literate people. The levels of literacy have gone up that our jobs demand. AI is not going to solve this problem.
No.
AI will further reduce the number of jobs, but the people that support those jobs are going to have to be able to think, problem solve, work on teams, and be very flexible because, as you mentioned, technology is constantly changing, all right? So we have two problems here. You need parents to push their kids and schools to raise standards, and you need manufacturers and other industries to reintroduce training and retraining of workers.
Now let me ask, this is kind of a broad stretch question, but take all of that thinking and what would your vision be in terms of how we do church?
How we do church.
Yeah, how the church is structured. What do we need to be looking at in terms of all of these pieces into our faith life and how we attract people?
Well,
that's a tough question.
I know, that's right. It's a broad one. Maybe it's another show.
No. You know, I was originally invited by Father Greg to be on these programs to talk about the history of the Catholic Church and to encourage people to study it. That means you read. That means you do study it. Now, I'll be doing a series of programs at Holy Name this summer on postmodernism, the history of the Catholic Church in the missions, and the history of the Catholic Church in America. I want Catholics to take their faith more seriously because we need evangelization. And to have evangelization, to better strengthen what Catholics know so that they can discuss this intelligently, we need more people to be more literate regarding the history of the church, the laws of the church, the customs of the church, and the practices that we have to encourage people to understand how the faith, the grace of God comes through the sacraments to them to help them through their life.
It's the same dynamic.
Yes, usually when you're a believer connected to a faith community, it involves work, play, prayer, friendship, to be connected relationally. But I think a big part of it is, the great line is, all work and no play is not good. All play and no work is not good. So how do you balance that in through faith? We need a program to actually close, believe it or not. And Dr. Edward Gordon, you are phenomenal. You're talking about tariffs, debt, jobs. You could have taken at least an hour on each topic. You're such a wealth of knowledge, not only from the head, but from the heart. Because when you talk so passionately in these areas. You have still love for the Lord and the community. And you want people to truly live out their faith and to make a difference. So I want to thank in a very special way Dr. Edward Gordon, historian, researcher, writer, author, dear friend, very involved with Cathedral with his wife Elaine. I want to thank you, Edward, for being part of the program today. Special thanks to co-host.
Can I add one thing?
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
Go to www.holynamecathedral.org and you can see the dates and times for Dr. Gordon's presentations during this summer.
There'll be 3 parts, summer lecture series with our own Dr. Edward Gordon. So you'll be very involved in Cathedral this summer.
Yes.
Thanks again, Mark.
Special
thanks to our producer engineers, to Clint Cottrell, to Trevor, to Henry, a great trio of team in there. May God bless all of you. As we now move the calendar from May into June, blessings into our summer. Amen.
Amen.